So, what does leadership look like at 17 years old? Well, today we're talking about discipline, character, and the ROTC program at Savannah High School with First Sergeant Barry Adwell. This conversation might change how you see today's teenagers. It may change how I see today's teenagers. But before we begin, I want to thank our local sponsors who make these conversations possible. Greater Than Financial, The Space Between, Gina's Cafe and Catering, Edward Jones, and Jason Sarsney, Pancakes, Pups and Suds, North Central Missouri College, the Savannah campus, and Scooters Coffee. We are so grateful for the businesses that invest in local leadership. So, Sergeant Adwell, welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
We're so glad you're here. So, tell me about your journey. Like, how did you end up in uniform and now in the classroom?
Yeah, it's been a long grind, you know. I retired almost 2 years ago to the day. So I've been retired from the military for a little over 2 years now, and I spent 24 years wearing the uniform. I I was a senior in high school in a little town about 45 minutes north of here, and just kind of I had a buddy that was in high school with me, and his dad was in the military, and we just decided to join together. So I spent 24 years in the Army National Guard and worked at a few different locations around the state of Missouri. And it was probably, it's apart from marrying my wife and having a family, is the best decision I ever made. I was extremely blessed. I've always told people I felt like I was touched by the hand of God to be put in the places that I was and have the challenges that I had and the opportunities that I had. It was just great. It's been nice, and to fall into a wonderful hometown like this here in Savannah, where my wife went to school, and to be here, end up here, and be involved with the community is something that I don't take lightly. So it's awesome.
I was telling you one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you is because I had heard about you. People respect you. They call you Sarge at school. And I wanted to hear your story. So, what do you feel like the military taught you that still shapes how you lead today? Because we're trying to teach these kids, right?
I think the biggest thing is respect. In Junior ROTC, I'm constantly telling people it's the go-to line. The mission of Junior ROTC is to motivate young people to be better citizens. And if we can get them to take an initial step of being respectful, understanding what goes on in their community, being respectful on a face-to-face basis, it's not always easy with high school students because they do have conflicts, but if we can mold these young people and ingrain within them the desire and the ability and the just the want to be respectful and work with one another, be a member of a team, I think that goes a long way in our community. Because if you've got we've all had these problems of something goes wrong, your car breaks down, you need your battery jumped or something like that. There's always somebody. If there's somebody there to help you, it's very beneficial. Just helping your fellow man. So those are some of the things. Respect for people is kind of step one to motivating young people to be better citizens.
Was there a moment in your service that actually changed you? I know Aiden, my kiddo, has talked about you've had several experiences, but was there a moment in your service that changed you?
There's been a ton of moments, within my service, but probably I think the defining moment is because we can learn from good leaders, but we can also learn from bad leaders. And I'm not going to drop any names, but I think that probably one of the defining moments was when I worked for somebody who was just one of the most toxic leaders that I'd ever encountered. This person was just almost just like would be one way one moment, want to be your friend one moment, and then the next moment he'd be like, I got you. You did this, or you didn't do that, or I told you you should have done that, and he'd just get on you. But then the next moment he'd want to be your friend again. It was almost like that was one of the moments where I learned as a leader that that you can be a good leader or you can be a bad leader. And it's kind of a teachable moment that allowed me to see that, there's more than one way to do things. And, like I said, with the respect thing, being respectful and earning people's respect is important. And that was probably one of the big moments because that was probably the worst 2 years of my military career, I could tell you. It was bad for
Man,
me, it was bad for my wife, it was bad for the whole family. So
and it's so true. We learn from those moments. Sometimes those are the moments that teach us the most.
yeah.
Sarge, when people hear ROTC or junior ROTC, they may picture like strict drills and marching, but what is it actually like at Savannah High School?
So it all boils back to that mission statement of motivating young people to be better citizens. So yes, we're an Army program that's in a high school, but we're a normal high school class. We're a PE option. My class belongs in the PE and health department, and so we do physical fitness. But there's a lot of classes that we do, and yes, specifically about kind of the marching thing. Marching is teamwork. Marching is listening and being precise and following directions. Marching is holding your hands a certain way. Yeah, it's comfortable to hold them this way for me, but you know what? That's not the way we do things. It's about precision, it's listening, it's following directions, it's cognitively taking in a command and then transitioning that to actually doing it and doing it in unison. It's almost like a school of fish. We have to do everything the same way and being on a team and uh, when you can put that team together, and it's taken a long time because nobody here has marched before in Savannah. It's year one of the program. 2 years previous at Central High School in St. Joe, where I came from, where I taught my first 2 years, there were upperclassmen, and those upperclassmen would teach the incoming first year cadets how to march. I don't have that here. I haven't had that. I've been marching these kids around and building them up from the ground, and I've had to pull a lot of weight. Pull a big sled behind me and earn my money, so to speak. So, but getting them together on a team and seeing the success on their faces has been worth that. To know that, they've progressed far enough that they're able to actually march a whole drill routine. And, I was marching them today. There's 55 different commands in a drill routine. So, to get them there. And my goal is to have these first year kids marching the other people around next year. So I can maybe take a step back. So, but teamwork,
Well,
working together.
it's obviously really enjoyable to be at the football games and watch what's going on. I mean, it really is. It's such a point of pride for so many of us in the community. But I guess one question as a parent, and maybe other parents know the answer to this, but do students have to plan on joining the military if they do take junior ROTC?
No, that's been a big misconception that I've seen. So I wasn't hired by this time last year when students were presented the opportunity to take this class. But this year I've had the major benefit of being able to go to the middle school. A week ago today, I went to the middle school and talked to all the incoming eighth graders and being able to tell them that, hey, you don't have to have the military in your future. We need leaders. We need patriots, good citizens. We need all those people in the community. I told a lot of the eighth graders, only 1 or 2% of people join the military, but we need everybody to be a good citizen. So I constantly telling every class that came through at Savannah Middle School last week that the military doesn't have to be in your future. This is not a program that's meant to be a recruiting tool. It's a program that's meant to build leaders, build people who love their country, build people who are respectful and aren't afraid to help their fellow person out, aren't developing confidence. I've seen so many kids develop confidence throughout the year that it's been mind blowing, and the year's not even over yet. So I think those are huge steps that we've already taken within this school that I've seen, and it's up to everybody else that's, for me to show them as well. And we've had ton of opportunities to do that.
I was going to ask, what would surprise parents the most about the program, do you think?
I think uh, past the initial thing of seeing their young student in a military uniform and give them that sense of pride, but to probably see that students are willing to stand up in front of a group of people, like and give a presentation and talk about what they've learned. Any educator. I've only been in education for 3 years now. With high school students, and you know sometimes you feel like you're talking to the cement, the concrete wall that's at the back of my classroom. Sometimes, and you don't know if they're taking it in. Yeah, they pass quizzes and they pass tests and things like that. But to give kids some instruction and then hear them, uh, bring that back out, and I get to hear them, and they'll say something, and I'll be like, man, they really were listening. They did hear what I was saying. They did catch that important thing, and that's super gratifying as an educator. It really fills your tank up and keeps you going.
What are today's teenagers struggling with that maybe past generations didn't? I mean, only being in the schools for 3 years, right? You're fairly new. You were outside the system 3 years ago. Now that you're in it, what do you think today's teenagers are struggling with?
I think those things that they walk around with and the phones in their hands, and the biggest thing that's been a great success is all these states that are passing cell phone laws, and those phones are huge distractions. They're huge distractions for adults. When you put that in the hands of a young person, in the hands of a minor, it's it's beyond uh, uh, it's beyond a distraction. And when they're here, they're supposed to be here to learn. And you can see those results right off the bat. But these interpersonal problems that high schoolers have. We were all in high school once. The drama. I'm constantly telling these students that, what did drama ever do for you? Is drama good for you? Drama's not good for anybody, especially here when you're here in a learning environment. I can think of a number of students that I tried to impress upon them that, hey, stay away from the drama, and that can go a long way to building up your self-esteem, focusing on the things that matter, your homework, things like that. But if they can have the ability to overcome those things, and a lot of times that mobile phone and the communication that goes on with it leads to the drama. Those are probably the biggest things that I would say.
So in September, one of our first interviews was with Mr. Voldemont,
Mhm.
who was telling us, that the cell phone policy was a huge success already because of what he was noticing in the lunchroom. And then he said, the lunchroom was loud. And we thought, is that a win? Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a win because that means people are talking. So have you seen that? Have you just seen an increase in, communication? And what do you notice?
I see it as support from our government. And I see it as support from the school administration before the law was passed. I see that students don't have that distraction, and I do think the interpersonal communication is good. Everybody thought that Facebook and all these different Instagram, all these social media things were good and would connect people more, but I think many people find that it's quite the opposite. And to hear the conversations that go on, most of them hopefully being positive, and not heading down those roads toward that drama and things like that. But I I think, yeah, overall, awesome. I mean, couldn't
Great.
ask for anything more.
Yeah, that's great. So, what do you see in this generation that gives you hope?
Hmm. Hope, motivation, a desire to do well, and you don't see that at every school, and you don't see it in every class. But some of the kids, like I want anybody who's willing to come through my door and sit down and hear some of these things that we have to offer. Listening to these class, even though we're a PE class, we're still uh focused on, things like conflict resolution, anger management, controlling your stress. Those kids need that. And if they have an open ear toward it, then it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make the horse drink. Um, but getting through to these kids, and once you see the light switch and they have a desire or a hunger or a thirst to improve themselves, that's critical. And that's where I see some hope because, you know, many people will argue or you'll see students that uh, have some difficulty with some things. Like, I'll have a student, like early on in the year, I had a student who was struggling with fitness. Like we'd go out and we'd run a couple laps, just to ease them into it with our goal to run a mile. But kids drinking energy drinks all the time, and energy drinks as a 15-year-old kid, one, doesn't work very well, but two, it also doesn't work very well while you're trying to run a mile. And just encouraging them to drink more water and see them transition away from Monster energy drinks to Dr. Peppers, and then breaking away from that and getting to water. I don't know. I don't know how that transition works, but to see them with water is, those are little steps. And I couldn't take the drinks away from this person. And like, that's not what I can do, but through encouragement and see them make those decisions on their own, that is hopeful. That is something that there's a light at the end of the tunnel with these kids.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, how do you teach discipline, which you just gave us a perfect example, without breaking a student's spirit? Because that's difficult to do as a parent, you know?
Yeah, I think being consistent, and like, I think some teachers let students sit on desks. It's something like that. So I'll see a student sitting on a desk. I'm like, hey, that desktop is for hands, arms, elbows, things like that. It's not for butts. Okay. Chairs are for butts. And just constantly over and over reinforcing what I have my classroom rules to be. And yeah, they may be a little bit more strict, but I think if anybody talked to any of my 45 students that come through my door, they would tell you that they like me. I don't think I have a single student that would honestly tell you that they didn't like me. And yeah, maybe they were scared at the beginning of the year, but kids don't mind rules. Most kids don't mind rules. It's it's getting them toward discipline. It's getting them toward structure. It's like hats. Hats. Students at Savannah don't get to wear hats. Okay. And at my previous school, everybody could wear hats. And it's a hat, big deal. But here it's a rule. No hats. And you don't argue with many kids about it. Maybe one or two that you have to say, hey, take your hat off. But having a rule like that is meaningful, and it's a big deal, and it goes a long way. And it's structure, and kids need structure. And, you know, I think just constantly reinforcing that and sticking to it and not letting things slide is important. And I don't think they mind it as much as you would think that they would.
Well, and being a new teacher in the district, I'm really curious if you feel supported by that structure.
Savannah School District, and I'm not just saying this because people from Savannah community or people from the school district would watch it, but the school district is amazing. I constantly tell people I really enjoyed my job at Central High School in St. Joe, but I'm amazingly blessed to be here. I learned a ton. I probably wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't spend 2 years in St. Joe. The people I worked with, the people I worked for, from the administrators, everyone, the other teachers that I worked with, I don't really have much bad to say. I constantly tell them that, you know, stay in touch with some of those people that, hey, it's great, but Savannah it's home. Um, my kids went to Avenue City, and Avenue City's a special place over there. And my kids are going to come here to Savannah. My son's a freshman here, and just everything works out, and for everything worked out for a reason. And the teachers here, the administration here, I know people on the school board, they're all supportive. They all understand. So it's it's amazing.
So, why do you think a small town school like Savannah needs a program like yours?
I think constantly we are in a world that is influenced by social media. And, you know, back when I was a kid, 100 years ago, you didn't walk around with the internet in your pocket. So you weren't as exposed. We were a little bit more compartmentalized when it came to, um, our peers, the people we were around. And it took a while for things to get to you. But here, everybody sees everything from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they're incorporating that into their own environments. And things can change really quick if you don't stay on top of it and reinforce things. Um, in this region, it's uh, people love the flag, people support the flag, but in other places, let's be honest, in other places in the United States, that's not always true. And if kids are only hearing a certain message from their phones from wherever that may be, then that becomes the new norm. And I don't I I'm not ashamed to say that I love our flag. I love our country. And when I talk to kids, I tell them, as someone who's been to multiple countries around this world, this is home. This is awesome. Don't let anybody tell you that America's not the best. It is. And I think we have to stick to that, and we have to have reverence for our flag because it means something. We have to have reverence for our country because it means something. We have to have reverence for our constitution and the things that are important. And these are things that we uh, build up from a foundational level in this class.
That brings up a good point. This is obviously running this week, and it's been a very active weekend with our military, and we're obviously praying for the families of all those involved. But have kids come up to you because they do have access to everything on the internet? Do they come up to you and ask you questions about what the American government is doing or what's happening overseas? Have you gotten any of that even this week?
Occasionally, some kids are, in tune with some of that stuff. But honestly, I think a lot of students see these reels that are on, I'm not a social media guy. I try to avoid that stuff like the plague for the reasons that I've mentioned.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, you can get into drama, but kids see this stuff, and kids knew when we bombed Iran the first time. Uh, the nuclear facilities with the B-2 bombers out of Whiteman Air Force Base. We talked about it in class. Um, uh, when the Venezuela thing kicked off, and that we were in and out of there, and man, you know, just goes a long way to say that America is awesome because of two things like that. And the kids ask about it, and I think the kids see what's happening in the world. And if I can talk to them about, hey, we can't have other countries building nuclear weapons, and we can't have other countries uh, you know, operating drug cartels and glorifying them and sending drugs across our border. These are problems. And talk about the logistics behind it, the legal nature of these things, and like you can sit around and be a free rider as a country. It's like an economics term. You can sit around and be a free rider, but as a country, but until somebody stands up for freedom and takes an action to solve a problem, you can talk about problems all day long. But right now,
Yeah.
we're a country of action that you know puts a stop. It's like Harry S. Truman said, the buck stops here. And I think that's pretty cool.
So I guess if you could say one thing to parents like myself in Andrew County about raising strong kids, what's one thing that you would say to us?
Whether they're the most popular kid, the most athletic kid, or the opposite end of the spectrum, I think every kid walking these hallways has something that they're lacking confidence in, something that they're conscientious about, something that they're worried about, something that is bringing down their self esteem, something that they're scared of, something that they're anxious about. every kid walking these hallways has that. Lots of adults do too. But as as an educator who's tasked with, all these things, if we can overcome all that big list of things, I think we're headed in the right direction for bringing people to that higher citizenship level. Because if we can overcome those things, we're going to be a better person. We're going to be able to focus more on our education. We're going to be able to have time to help other people out. We're not going to be worried about this or that. And to tell parents that their their kid has the ability to overcome these things through concentrated coursework, placing them in situations that are going to challenge them, giving them opportunities to uh, overcome and excel. Other programs in the school, Savannah's just loaded with ag programs and business programs and all these things, and they're all. I'm not a one. I'm not the only show in town, but to have something that is our primary goal is important, and for parents to know and understand that their child has the ability to take a step up, take a step forward, whatever it is, and and to meet those challenges head on and be able to overcome them and reap the rewards that are out there for them. And it doesn't have to lead toward the military. It can be anything that they make it.
So, when one of your students walks across the graduation stage this May, what do you hope that they carry with them because they were in ROTC?
I see it already. I see it already. I see the pride. I'll give you an example. So we just started archery here at Savannah, or fired archery up. And archery is a huge co-curricular for Junior ROTC. Archery is one of the biggest extracurricular activities that's growing right now in Northwest Missouri and across the nation. I'll give you an example with I had a senior student. We got started a little late, due to some shipments of our equipment, and then having to hang up safety equipment and go through procedural things, so we got started a little bit late. But there was a young lady who's a senior that'll walk across the stage this spring, and I saw something in her, namely she was hitting bullseye after bullseye after bullseye. And I am like, man, I would, there's a few archery tournaments going on, and just to see her eyes and her face light up with an opportunity, I said, I'm going to do what I can. Are you available at this time? There's a tournament. I can't be there, but I can get everything set up for you. You can go. And of course, she was ecstatic. Her dad made it. Her boyfriend made it. Her cousins and aunts and uncles and her whole family showed up to support her. Did she win? No. Did she score admirably? Yes. But to see something get reignited in her, and to see how happy she was about that opportunity. Had she not taken this class, never had the opportunity. Had we not set up archery, she'd have never had that opportunity. I'm gonna put myself out there for these kids to take a step, to put in a little bit of work, to pour into them so that they can have these opportunities and their face lights up. She's going to remember that for the rest of her life. She told me her first archery meet she went to as like a I don't know, in elementary school, she was on lane 12. Saturday at Avenue City at the archery tournament, lane 12. And she's always going to remember that. I'm like, how did you even remember lane 12 when you were a little kid? She's like, I had a
Yeah.
picture. And I'm like, and she said, lane 12. That's where I was. That's where I started. That's where I started, it's where I ended. So,
That's
just
awesome.
she's going to remember that story for the rest of her life. And I'll probably remember it for a good long while myself.
Yeah. Well, if you could give one piece of advice to a teenager, what would it be?
Work hard. Work hard. I mean, nothing comes easy. Nothing's going to be given to you. You need to earn it. You got to work hard. Someone's going to notice the effort that you put into something. Somebody's going to notice you for what you are, you know, growing up in a small town. you just have something that, probably 90% of the rest of the world doesn't have. It's built in from day one. And even when you see people around that maybe don't have it, when they go somewhere else, they probably do have it more so than somebody else. And that work ethic, that determination, that desire to succeed, the never quit, that's something that can define people. And if you have it and you can keep at it, take you a long way.
Thank you to First Sergeant Adwell for investing in this next generation at Savannah High School. If you value conversations that spotlight strong leadership in our community, subscribe to the 3994 and share this episode. Better yet, leave us a review. I'm Jodie O'Brien, and this has been the 3994. Until next time.